Welcome everybody. This is our webinar on Disability Royal Commission, legal questions and answers, and we are joined together by Your Story Disability Legal Support, who will be answering our questions today. I'm going to start off by acknowledging that we at Family Advocacy acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we work, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We acknowledge the sorrow of the stolen generations and the impact of colonisation on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We also recognise the resilience, strength and pride of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And today I'm zooming in from Dark and Jung country, and I want to welcome you all as we gather together for this webinar. For our webinar today, there will be a few people speaking. My name is Troy Hester. I'm the Advocacy Engagement Officer here at Family Advocacy for the Disability Royal Commission. Talia Roshan is also here. She's also an Advocacy Engagement Officer. And Oliver Moore is a solicitor with the Your Story Disability Legal Support, and he will be answering our questions today. Just in terms of housekeeping, I'd ask everybody to mute your mics until we get to question time at the end. But you can use the chat to say hello, and you can also put your questions in the chat, and that won't be recorded as part of the webinar, but will give us a chance to look at those questions before we get to our live question and answer form. We do have a feedback form today, and there'll be a SurveyMonkey link in the chat, and we'll ask you to fill that in at the end of this so that we can get advice on doing these webinars better. Because we're talking Disability Royal Commission, you may be hearing some stories or some questions that might be triggering for you. Just we encourage you to take care of yourself, and if you need to step out of the webinar for any reason, then you can come back and watch the recording later. And there's also Blue Knot Counselling is available to anybody who's even thinking about talking to the Disability Royal Commission, and their number is there on the screen. I'm just going to start off by doing a quick blurb about Family Advocacy. We are New South Wales wide. We're an independent disability advocacy organisation, and we work with families and people with disability. We work particularly with families to support them to advocate for their family member with disability. We were founded by families who were concerned about the rights and interests of their family member with disability, and we continue to be governed and staffed by families and allies. We do a number of things. We provide advocacy advice and support. We undertake systems advocacy, so we write to government and departments, etc., and meet on those systemic things. And we also currently support people to talk to the Disability Royal Commission, and that's what this is part of today. A few links that you may find helpful. Obviously, the Disability Royal Commission's phone number, and you can ring them for any questions as well, and their website's there. You can talk to myself or Talia about any support that you need in terms of talking to the Royal Commission, and we are at Family Advocacy. And Oliver today comes from Your Story Disability Legal Support, and so any legal support you might have, any legal questions you might have, I encourage you to contact them. The counselling support available is again through that Blue Knot Counselling number there. I'm going to hand over now to Talia and to Oliver, and we're going to answer we've got some questions, but first we're going to hear from Oliver. I'll hand over to you, Oliver.
Thanks, Troy, and thanks to Talia and Karen who are here as well today. Just a big thank you to Family Advocacy for welcoming us here. I've looked forward to this, and it's always a pleasure to work with Family Advocacy, whether it's for reaching out to people in the community or working together with mutual clients. Troy and Talia are great and can recommend their services for anyone interested, and hopefully they can recommend mine. Who knows? Anyway, let's go to the next slide, and I'll tell everyone a little bit about Your Story. So we're a free legal service. We are independent of the Royal Commission. Wherever you are in Australia, we can provide a service. We work with the legal aid commissions and the Aboriginal legal services across the country to provide a trauma-informed and culturally safe service. If we go to the next slide. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about what support is available from Your Story. We provide a variety of services from advice to assistance to referrals. And our central role is advising and supporting people on their options on going to the Royal Commission. We'll always take into consideration everyone's unique situations and tailor our advice to what is right for you. Sometimes we can assist people to prepare their submissions or get ready for their private sessions. And it's important to know that we also work closely with disability advocacy organisations like Family Advocacy and the counselling organisations like Blue Knot, who were referenced earlier. And we're happy to connect you with those services as well. If we go to next slide. These are just some of the common legal issues that come up, and this is just a sample, and this is not limited to. We can answer your questions about sharing your story with the Royal Commission. They might be how you can share your story, how you can keep your story private, whether you can name the person or organisation that hurt you, and maybe you've signed a legal document which says you can't talk about what happened. We can talk about what this means and your options. We can also talk about whether sharing your story will affect you at work, or if you think somebody will do something bad to you as a result of going to the Royal Commission, and what protections there are. Our ultimate goal is to provide legal support so you can safely and confidently share your story. We'll give contact details at the end if you'd like to make an appointment with us. So that's all I had for the brief introduction to Your Story. And now I believe Talia and Troy have some questions where I'll go into a bit more detail on things as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Oliver, for sharing a bit about what Your Story Disability Legal Support is. It's good to know that there's an organisation where people can get advice to share their story safely and confidently. You mentioned some of the support that's available. Are you able to expand just a little bit on how you're able to help someone wanting to share their story with the Disability Royal Commission?
Absolutely. I'll mention that it's not a requirement to speak to your story before making a submission, but that it is a good idea to get advice to share your story safely and confidently. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we can tailor legal advice and support to clients and your needs. That might involve one or more of the following: advice on safe ways to engage with the Royal Commission, support communicating with the Royal Commission if you need to request something from them, like a private session or a notice to produce. It can be support drafting submissions when you might not be able to do so yourself. And we also, it's good to know for everyone that we're a culturally safe service that collaborates with Aboriginal legal services to assist First Nations people who ask for help to prepare a submission. We can also help you prepare for a private session. As I mentioned, we do referrals to other services funded to support people to engage with the Royal Commission. We can also advise clients who are called by the Royal Commission as witnesses, and if required, refer people to independent solicitors for representation at a public hearing. We also know that people come to us with a variety of issues that might be not related to the Royal Commission, and there might be a legal pathway to resolve your submission in addition to sharing it with the Royal Commission for issues like discrimination claims, Centrelink issues, housing and more. We can also just provide you with legal information about the Royal Commission. We can talk about the processes, focus on topics of interest, what is coming up in hearings, and we can also provide the contact details of how to make an appointment.
That's great. Thanks, Oliver. So one of the questions that we had is, can I share something that happened some time ago, or does it have to be recent?
That's a good question, and I hear that a lot in advices as well. So everyone should know that you can share a recent experience or something that happened in the past.
That's great. And how much detail should I give in my story?
And this is really up to you. Some people choose to give in a submission with a quick 5-minute phone call or a paragraph in an email. Others prefer to say more and put their experience in writing or with an audio or video recording or even a painting. There's even one example of someone who recently submitted a rap. So any potential artists out there, you can go for it, or there are lots of ways you can contribute. You can also request a private session with a commissioner for an hour-long conversation. There are different options, and organisations like Family Advocacy and Your Story are here to assist you to decide what works for you.
Now, can I use the name of a person or organisation?
So it's your choice if you want to name an organisation or a person when you share your story. There can be some risks in some situations, but there are also steps you can take to protect yourself. Some risks of naming names could be someone might try to take you to court, or someone might mistreat you. If you want to name an organisation or a person in your submission, but you're concerned someone might try to take you to court, it's important to tell the facts as you remember them and as clearly as you can. I'd also emphasise it's also important to not repeat your story to other people, such as on social media. If you want to name an organisation or person, but you're concerned someone might mistreat you, we suggest you get legal advice before giving information to the Royal Commission. You can protect yourself by giving your information confidentially, for example, and there are other special ways to protect your safety when you engage with the Royal Commission. And when you use the special ways, it is a criminal offence to injure you or cause you disadvantage.
And what if I've signed a non-disclosure agreement? Does that mean that I can't share my story?
If you've signed a non-disclosure agreement, there may be ways you can still share your story. It'll depend on what you've signed, what you want to share, and how you'd like to share it. But it is best to get legal advice from us if this is an issue for you.
So I've seen something that's happened, and I think the Disability Royal Commission should know about it. Am I legally allowed to make a submission on someone else's experience, or does it need to come from them?
The Royal Commission wants to hear your story. If you're a family member, carer, or just supporter of a person with disability who's been hurt or treated badly, maybe refused help or taken advantage of, you would be sharing the story in your name and from your point of view. The person with disability can also share their story from their point of view if they would like to. 2 or more people can share a story with the Royal Commission about the same event or concern. There are different ways you can share your story with the Royal Commission, including in a submission or private session. If you have concerns about safety or privacy of a person with disability, maybe the person that you're talking about with their experiences, your story can give you legal advice about safe ways to share your story. It's important to know you should get permission from the person with disability to give them, if you want to give them their name and personal information. If the person doesn't agree to that, you shouldn't share their personal information. You can speak to your story about how you can share the story with the Royal Commission without naming the person.
Okay. And what are some of the possible negative consequences of making a submission that I should be aware of before speaking to the Disability Royal Commission?
Our job is to advise you on ways to minimise those negative consequences. What this might look like really depends on your situation. A lot of people have concerns about people acting against them in their jobs, at home, maybe school or other settings. And some people are concerned about their information being used against them in court or their privacy being compromised. There are ways to get protections.
That's really interesting. So what can I do to protect myself?
Often I discuss with clients the possibility of sharing their story confidentially as the first line of protections. People can't act against you for giving information if they don't know you've given it.
So how do people share their story confidentially?
There are 2 options here. The first option is to make your submission and mark it confidential or restricted. This way, the Royal Commission will not publish your story or refer you to your story in its reports or recommendations. If you ask for your submission to be kept confidential, it will remain confidential for 99 years. During this time, it can't be subpoenaed, that's requested by a court, or requested under freedom of information, so that's requested by anyone else. There are also protections if you ask for your submission to be confidential. These protections protect the information you provide by making it a criminal offence for a person to record, use, or tell people the information from your submission without your permission. Your submission also can't be used as evidence against you in civil or criminal cases in court. The second option is to have a private session, which is an hour-long conversation with a Royal Commission where you can talk about, a Royal Commissioner that is, where you can talk about your story and your ideas on how to make things better. This is a good option for people who would like to give information privately and less formally. We can give you more information about private sessions, how to register, and prepare if you give us a call.
So Oliver, what other protections are offered by the Disability Royal Commission?
In a private session, the protections offered include that it becomes a criminal offence for anyone to use what you say against you in any civil or criminal case in court, to cause you any hurt, punishment, damage, loss, or disadvantage, which is just words that mean, people can't act against you. It becomes an offence for someone to dismiss you or disadvantage you in your job, or to record, use, or disclose what you say without your permission. The protections are only legal protections. If someone breaks one of these laws, you can tell the police and the matter may be investigated. If you'd like to make a submission, in some situations, you can also get the same protections by asking the Royal Commission to send you something called a notice to produce for your submission. We can give you advice about whether this would be an option for you. A notice to produce is a legal document that requires you to give the information or documents it lists to the Royal Commission. The notice to produce will say when and where you need to give the information or documents, and it is important to get legal advice if you'd like to request or receive a notice to produce. A lawyer will support you to respond.
I heard that there were changes to confidentiality protections recently. What were they and how will they impact me?
Yeah, this was great news for the community, for people with disability and supporters. When you make a submission to the Royal Commission, you're asked how they can use your submission. The options are public, anonymous, or confidential. Previously, if you selected restricted or confidential, the information was only fully confidential for the life of the Royal Commission until September 2023. After that, it could potentially have been accessed by freedom of information requests or by courts through what's called a subpoena, which I mentioned earlier. This caused a lot of concern for people with disability and supporters who wanted to be sure that their submission was kept confidential. People needed to feel confident that sensitive information stayed between them and the Royal Commission, and the Royal Commission couldn't guarantee that. So for a long time, disability advocates, people with disability and supporters had asked for better protections to fix this for information given to the Royal Commission. And on the 30th of August this year, the Federal Parliament passed changes to improve confidentiality for people giving information to the Royal Commission. Submissions, like in private sessions, the information will now be kept confidential for a full 99 years after it's submitted. It can't be accessed by freedom of information or a subpoena. People can feel safer to share their story. There are also other protections, which I briefly talked about earlier, in that statements and documents can't be used as evidence against you in court, and it's an offence for someone to share your story without your permission. And like in private sessions, it's important to know that in limited circumstances, the Royal Commission can pass on information about serious criminal offences or child protection to authorities. The impact of these changes overall is that we hope that people can feel safer telling their story.
That's great. If I share my experience anonymously, will the Royal Commission give less weight to my submission?
No, that's not the case. I think every story is greatly important to the Royal Commission in forming their view of the challenges facing the community of people with disability, and all submissions, confidential or otherwise, anonymous or otherwise, are important in how the Royal Commission knows how to make things better.
So I want my story to be known publicly. Will the Disability Royal Commission publish my submission?
So the Royal Commission aren't currently publishing submissions. Their submission form still gives the option to make your submission public, but they've indicated that they will only be publishing quotes or a brief narrative of your submission.
So what happens to a submission once it's given to the Disability Royal Commission?
So once your submission is given to the Royal Commission, unless you select restricted or confidential, the Royal Commission may use your information in a de-identified way. De-identified means that your name and any features that would identify you will be removed. Anyone reading the material would not know that it refers to you. The whole or part of your submission may be quoted or paraphrased in reports or recommendation. Your submission might also be developed into a brief narrative to tell your story without mentioning your name or other details that would identify you. Using your information in this way will help to give the community an understanding about your experiences without identifying you. If you want your submission to be confidential, your submission will not be published in any way in any format, which means the Royal Commission will not refer to the information you've provided in any public document in any way. I have to emphasize, though, that all submissions, whether they're public or confidential, de-identified or anonymous, help the Royal Commission with their reports and recommendations. They'll be speaking to academics and professionals, but it's important for people to know that often the experts in the system are people with disability and their families. The Royal Commission needs to hear these voices if they're going to make accurate recommendations on how to improve the lives and experiences of people with disability.
And what will the Disability Royal Commission do to change or improve my situation?
So the Royal Commission really values your story, and they will read it or listen to it thoroughly, and you'll receive acknowledgement of that, whether you make a submission or go to a private session or a public hearing. The Royal Commission may follow up from a submission or private session to ask if you'd like to be a witness at a public hearing, but the Royal Commission doesn't resolve individual issues. The Royal Commission looks at issues in a systemic way. All stories together paint a bigger picture, giving them an idea of the themes and trends that affect people with disability. The aim of the Royal Commission is to make recommendations and for governments and other organisations to act upon them. We don't know what the results will be, and you might not be able to achieve immediate change if you go to the Royal Commission, but you are becoming part of something bigger, and you're becoming an advocate for both yourself and the community of people with disability.
Thank you so much, Oliver.